welcome back. Today I'm going to be taking a look at this old Sargent padlock. This is one of the ones that was in that lot of locks that I got that needed cleaned up. Couldn't get all the rust off the shackle, so what I decided to do with this one is, well, I'm going to turn it into a challenge lock. But before that, we're going to pick it. I did find where the plugs for the pin stack is here. You can kind of see the shadow of the holes being a slightly different color as I move the lock around. Very, very difficult to see. But I did mark them to aid in my quest. And, well, first part of it is we're just going to go ahead and pick this guy. I haven't picked it yet, but I have blasted it pretty heavily with Tri-Flow. But let's see what we can do. This is a Sargent, and based off the age of it, I can assume it's all standard pins. So Sargents with standard pins, I generally always use heavy tension. There's click from 1, click from 2, click from 3, click from 4. Okay, another little click from 3. Okay, looks like 5. There we go. And it's a 5-pinner. So that opened us up. And let's see here. The next time when I come back to video, we're going to be having this thing clamped up. And we're going to start drilling these out. Alright, so we got it back in the vise. I can put my hammer up now. And let's see here. I'm just going to take my drill with a 1/8 inch drill bit. And I'm going to go ahead and get it started in these holes right here. Now I'm going to slow up just a little bit. There we go. And son of a bitch. That's all that took to catch and break the drill bit. So that's actually going to be a little interesting to get out. Okay. Looks like the bit came out. And, well, guys, that's what you get for using Black & Decker drill bits. Okay, looks like I got that one bored out. And I'm not too worried about making it perfect because we're just going to tap these and put caps in them. Start knocking everything out of here. Alright. And knock all the guts out of it. I'm not going to be too particular with them. And you can see I wasn't quite perfect with my drill hole there on a couple of them, but not too terribly worried about it. Back at the pinning tray, we can go ahead and take a look as to what kind of pins we have in this lock. And as I suspected, they were all standard pins. And I'm pretty sure by the speed that I picked this, you guys would recognize that as well. There's our key. And I think I'm going to reuse this same key. It's a pretty wicked bitting. But one thing that I'm unsure of with this is I found 3 master wafers inside this lock. And I'm not sure which chamber those actually go to. When I pin these up, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a trial and error in the future. So let's go ahead and just set the key pins in. And I'm actually kind of guessing on which pin goes where, guys. Because the way I dumped that out wasn't too lock friendly. Okay. Let's go ahead and tap it to get them to go down. Pushed all the way down and the key does still turn. Okay, so let's test with a master wafer. Let's go with one of these longer ones and let's just stick it in, say, chamber 5. Aha! So, chamber 5 was a master wafered chamber, because it will not turn anymore. So let's go ahead and dump out chamber 5, if possible. There's the wafer out of it. So let's drop the shorter wafer in it and see how it works out for us. Okay, the shorter wafer is still catching even with the key in. So that's not the right one either. There must have been another one that must have rolled off and hit the floor. And through trial and error and playing with master wafers, I'm going to have to figure that out. So in the meantime, let me go ahead and get that worked out, and then we'll come back to camera. Well, I've worked out the pinning on this lock. Pretty interesting stuff going on here. Well, I did discover that every chamber was master wafered, so a couple of the wafers must have flown out and landed on the floor when I dumped everything out. So I went through my Schlage pinning kit for this size pin, and I pinned it up with Schlage pins. The only trouble pin would be pin number 2, which is a number 9, which would be the longest pin I have. Now that pin does hang up in the keyway or hang the plug up just a little bit. So that being known, I'm going to have to be just a little bit careful when deciding how to pin the rest of this lock up as far as the driver pin goes on too. And let me explain that just a little bit for somebody that may have not come across this issue. So if you got a pin that doesn't quite get to the shear line, and it's just enough that you can just torque the key over a little bit tougher and it goes, then on your driver pin, you can't really have a super sharp lip on it as far as a serration goes or a spool goes. Even a key pin, or a T-pin, wouldn't really work well in that situation. So in this chamber, I'm probably just going to go with a standard factory spool, and I'll just might make it a little bit deeper just to get that to work. The rest of these, I can do whatever. Well, let's go ahead and do a little bit more work on this lock. So I do want to thread a couple of the chambers, and I just said I'm not going to do anything to 2. So I stick my 3mm brass rod, which is another tool that I use for making pins. I stick that down in there to block it up. I don't need one quite so long, so let me search around here real quick and see if I can find a shorter brass tube or rod to stick in there to block that from turning. a shorter piece of the brass rod here. Okay, and that should keep that core from turning on me. Good. That's holding it nice. All right, so with that in there, we can come in there with our tap. And this tap is a 632 tap. You guys can read that upside down there in the camera. But that's a 632 tap, and I'm going to use that in, might as well use it in chambers 1. Oh, let's go with 1, 3, and 5 just for the heck of it. So just to get this out of my way just a little bit more, I want to move it over here. Okay, I bottomed out the tap. Okay, tap's bottomed out. And there, we bottomed out. Alright, so I just got to do a little bit of cleaning on this to get the crud out of the core. I'm going to go ahead and tap these other two, and then just for the little set screws we're going to be using, and we'll come back to camera. And welcome back, everybody. Let me give just a small adjustment here. I'm trying a different camera angle on doing these custom pins, and you guys have seen this before. This is the brass rod that I've used to make driver pins out of, and nothing's going to change about that today. Still going to use it, and let's see here. I'm going to need the little screw, the little wrench out of here real quick. Make sure it's tightened down good. And you also want to check to make sure that it's not wobbling one way or another. All right, so in this pin, I want to go ahead and make a pin for, let's go with chamber 3, because that's the pin that I've got the most leeway on. It's got the shortest driver pin and the room for the longest, or the shortest key pin and the room for the longest driver pin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a two-sided pin and pin. Probably going to come down about 1/8 of an inch either side, and then cut it off. And that's going to be an inner portion of a 3-part pin and pin. So we'll go ahead and get that started. Okay, so you can see I've just got that thing hanging there by a thread. Let me just adjust the focus a little bit there. There we go. All right, so I just got it hanging by a thread here. I can just break it right off. So this little nub right here, I'll just hit that with a little sandpaper and that'll disappear. Okay, so we got the outer collar done, or the inner of the 3-part pin and pin. So now we can start to work on the outer bits. Okay, there's several different sizes of drill bits you can use for this. And I just use some pretty cheap ones myself because the odds of you breaking one is actually somewhat high. So there's a little drill bit laid out there, and let's see here. Where's my pliers? As all you guys know, I'm always doing this off the cuff and with zero preparation. So at least I'm not making anything up. Not saying that anybody out there does, just, yeah. All right, so I got a pin here. And this is one of the driver pins from the lock before. And I'm just going to recycle it. Okay. Okay, I don't see any wobble in there, so that should give us a nice straight cut. And I'm going to go ahead and flatten off the bottom of it a little bit and make it work from there. Okay, now that I got the center drilled out here, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this. We're going to go ahead and turn this pin into a T-pin shape. Alright, so let's go ahead and flip this around. Or, well, pull it out a little bit, actually. And we'll do the rest of it. So the trick for this is it just has to barely be in there. Got a little bit more pin, but I don't know if you guys can tell on camera there, but that's actually pretty wobbly, so I can't do that. Let's go ahead and adjust this a little bit. Okay, straight as an arrow now, so let's tighten it. Sometimes when you tighten it, that's when the wobbling starts. And that's what happened that time. So, not going to be able to go with it with that method, so we're going to go ahead and take this collet out. And we're going to put the adjustable in. Now, these types of collets have a little bit of an inherent instability when compared to the manual. And I don't like to use this style as often. A little bit more difficult to get centered. Okay, that looks centered. And it's easy to crush or mar your inner pins with these. So you gotta tighten it down just enough. Alrighty, so I've got a hollow T-pin now. Grab my drill bit and just push the extra dust out of there. Alright, as you guys can see, that is hollow. And it is a T-pin. So let's go ahead and see if that fits on one of these ends. And it does nicely. So that'll come apart. I'm going to go ahead and set that where it's going to live. And let's go ahead and work on the other piece. Okay. Like I said before, it's a little bit more difficult to get everything perfectly centered up in these chucks here. But we're going to go ahead and give it a try. it's just a little bit more fiddly. That looks pretty straight. Okay, so let's go ahead and flatten the top a little bit. Okay, even though that was slightly wobbly, I still got it right in the center. All right, so we'll go ahead and make this into another T-pin. Alrighty, and we're going to make this one quite a bit shorter than the last one. And I figured I'd go ahead and put a serration on that. But when you do that, you do have to do a little bit of touch-up sanding just to get rid of some burrs. All right, let's pick it up off the floor because I can't hold on to it for nothing. And it rolled underneath my cabinet. Be right back. I've retrieved it, and here's our pin. We got a light serration. It's kind of hard to see, but it is T-pinish, and it will fit on the top of that. So that is the 3-part pin and pin. Not too difficult, just a little bit on the time-consuming side. And let's see here. Now we're going to go ahead and modify a spool. Let me try to adjust my focus here just a little bit. Yeah, that might work. Okay, and just like before, this is a standard factory spool, and I'm only going to slightly modify this. And I got quite a bit of wobble in that one, so give me a second to get it fine-tuned. Now we've got a nicely serrated spool. I'll be showing you guys these pins in a close-up here later. Alright, so now we got to do a serrated pin. Everybody's favorite, and mine too. This time I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use a factory serrated. I don't do this very often. And I don't want to fiddle with that all day long, so I'm going to go ahead and switch collets back. Yeah. Because these always fit a little bit better. And that is perfect. Okay, slight change in game plan on this one is I'm going to use a cheap dollar store knife and clean up these serrations, make them a little bit deeper. And I'm going to fling the pin out, it's going to bounce off of my chest because I didn't tighten it enough and lose it. So let's go ahead and grab a different pin. Well, let's make a homemade serrated. Okay. So as you can see, once again, I've got the brass rod in place, and this time we're going to make a serrated pin, and we're going to use a different tool than what I normally do. Normally I use this razor saw, but today I'm going to be using this cheap dollar store knife. Not my absolute best job at serrating a pin, but it'll work. One thing you always got to do that I neglected to do on this one is just do a little bit of sanding, but I'll do that right before the assembly. Alright, so we're going to go with another serrated. This time we're going to make another serrated. We're going to use my razor saw and my hacksaw blade. Alright, and now we've got a nicely serrated pin with different size serrations. And that'll go there in chamber 5. And, well, our last chamber to modify would be the driver in chamber 4. And right now I've just got a standard spool, and I think this one's just going to remain a spool. I'm just going to make it deeper. So we'll just load up another one. And we'll just be sure to tighten this thing down a little bit deeper. Not really wanting to hold in there well. There we go. Let's make sure we really tighten it down good this time. And that's wobbly as hell. All right, we'll try. And there we go. We got a step down spool. All right. So let's get back to the desk here in a second, and I'll show you what we made. So I've made all the modifications to the key or the driver pins. This particular lock, I'm not going to make any key pin modifications. I've decided against it. I wanted this thing to be pickable and workable. So if I start messing with these key pins, since they're not the original size, we're going to probably run into some issues. So this one's going to rely on all of the fun from the top. So in the top, in chamber 1, I made an extremely serrated pin. Number 2, we've got a serrated spool. Number 3 is a fun one. Number 3 is a 3-part pin and pin. Number 4 is a step-down spool, and number 5 is a serration with the different serrations that I made with the hacksaw blade and the razor saw. So there's our pins. No key pin modifications in this one, so let's go ahead and get this one put together, and well, we'll come back to camera as soon as I get it done. As you can see, I've got it all pinned back up. I've got my caps in place, and actually they do fit in there pretty good, so I'm probably just going to leave them like that so whoever gets it next can actually gut it. The key does work beautifully in both directions. It slides in and out just fine. So let's see what it's like to pick this thing. And did make one change, by the way. Putting this one together, since didn't have direct access to dropping them into the Bible through the core side, I had to go without the 3-part pin and pin. It was too much of a pain in the butt to get to go down in there, right? So I changed that cylinder up, and now it's just got a very long serrated spool. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. I've not even attempted to put a pick in this yet. But as you can see, key works nice. I want to tighten this nut here down to give a little bit more spring pressure on one, to make that pin work a little bit better. There we go. Because I can see here on the front that pin 1 wasn't wanting to fall down very well. So, but it is now that I've put a little bit more spring pressure just by tightening that nut up. Okay. Let's get some of this junk out of the way so I can start picking. Wonder if I can use this wrench. Nope. We'll go with this one here. It's a 50 thousandths dog ear. And let's see here. Let's use this guy. Use one of my homemade picks. Okay, one's binding. Got a click. Okay, another click. And another click. Wow, that one's crunchy. Okay, we'll click from 2, nothing on 3, nothing on 4, a little bit off of 5. Let's actually change directions. Okay, pin 5. Nice and crunchy. There we go. Got a little false set. Okay, pin 3. And we're open. So, not too bad. Definitely a little bit more difficult than it was to begin with, because it tripled my pick time anyway. But there we go. A custom pinned old Sargent, and well, this was going to be, well, named and sent out to the Locksport community, probably in my next trade. But there we go. So everyone, please stay safe, don't do anything illegal, and as always, please like, comment, and subscribe.